Now, a lot of players don't think that it's very easy to hit their fairway woods, especially when they're hitting them right off the turf. But what if I told you there's a few secrets that you can learn to make this really, really easy? Well, I've put together 3 of my all-time best videos that are going to share with you those secrets and help you to hit your fairway woods better than ever. Let's go ahead and get started. Do you feel like it's almost impossible to hit a really solid 3-wood off the ground? You tend to maybe hit a little behind the ball, you thin it, you just can't get the club on the golf ball for some reason. Well, there's actually a couple secrets to this that I'm going to go over in this video. Once you know the right way to do this, then it makes it really easy to hit that 3-wood. I got Q here. He's manning the flight scope, going to read some of our numbers and talk about the differences between hitting it the right way and the wrong way. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, this is something that's incredibly common. What I see most of the time is when you have a 3-wood and it's on the ground, a lot of times you feel like I need to get it a little bit more up in the air, or maybe I need to hit it harder. Either one of those thoughts makes it really easy to start flipping and losing a little bit of forward shaft lean and to actually ground out and be hitting kind of behind the golf ball. You know, another misconception in there, and you hear this all the time, is that we should sweep our fairway woods off the ground. Well, when you start thinking that, it's very easy again to hit too far behind the golf ball, and 2 things are going to happen. Either you brush a little bit of ground back here and then it kind of drop kick it. It's not really a solid hit. Or if you barely miss the ground, you hit it a little bit thin. There's really no way to get down into the golf ball and hit it solid. Well, in reality, you want to hit down on it and have a negative angle attack. You actually want to take a little bit of a divot when you're hitting a 3-wood. Let me go ahead and demonstrate this with a couple shots. This first one, I'm going to feel like I pick the ball clean. I brush it or I sweep it off the ground. You'll notice just behind the golf ball, you may even see a couple blades of grass move back here behind the golf ball because I'm actually grounding out too far behind the golf ball. Let's give this a try. So that one, good swing. I swung hard. Made pretty solid contact as far as left and right on the face. It was on the middle of the face, but it felt really thin. It really just didn't pop off there. Now I'm swinging fast, so it's probably still gonna go pretty far when I do it that way. What were the numbers on that one, Q?
So clubhead speed was about 105 miles per hour and total distance was 276.
Okay, so the carry distance was probably a little shorter. How far did that ball roll out?
It was about 240 on the carry distance.
So 240 in the air. That's usually the main number we're looking at. That's where you're gonna fly it if you're gonna carry it on the green. So 105 miles an hour swing speed, that's pretty fast swing speed. I should be able to carry the ball more than 240. Maybe you're currently swinging 80 miles an hour with a 3-wood, 90, 100, doesn't matter what it is. Using the same principle, it's gonna go farther. You might even swing a little bit faster doing it the right way. So let's try this again. Now what I'm gonna do is instead of feeling like I'm gonna sweep the ball, I feel like I'm actually gonna hit down on the golf ball. I wanna hit a little bit of a divot in front of this ball here. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna bring the contact higher up on the face. If I'm sweeping with the ground, then I'm kind of off the ground here. I'm gonna be thin every single time. If I'm hitting down, I can get higher up on this club face. I'm gonna get higher ball speed and better contact. So let's go ahead and try this one out to where I feel like I take a little bit of a divot on this one. There we go, nice and solid, almost the exact same line. So I'm actually aiming, it's probably gonna show up to the right on the flight scope because I got my flight scope lined up down the corner. But I know that one flew quite a bit farther. What was the number on that one, Q?
So clubhead speed went up to 109 miles per hour and the carry went up to 260.5.
So 20 yards farther in the air, it probably rolled out even more than that. What was the total on that one?
Total was about 279.
Okay, so I got a little bit more carry. I had better spin on that, better launch angle on that. Everything was a little bit better quality of shot. You'll notice right here that I have a little divot. I actually took out the grass in front of that golf ball on that last shot. If I would have swept that golf ball, it would have been thin. It would have been like the first one. So you're probably gonna pick up a solid 15 or 20 yards on your 3-wood by making sure that you hit that divot. Now, another big key to this is when we're trying to help our swing speed, we're trying to push with our hands and arms to really accelerate this club. A lot of people will have the misconception that they take this right palm and that pushes the club forward to help accelerate the club. That's actually not happening in a great golf swing. I want to have this right hand angled back, and it's the turning of my body that actually gets this club to whip on through there. It's the pulling up that gets the club to really whip on through. So if I have a good angle of lag, so I imagine this club is lagging back here, and I take this grip and I pull straight up on it, watch what happens to the club head. It whips forward. It's that kind of whipping through contact that allows you to really get the high club head speed. It's not pushing the club with the right hand this way. It's actually turning the body and letting it whip through. So this is also another thing that allows you to get higher swing speeds when you feel like you're hitting down. So what should be happening here is when I start my swing, everything is moving down. I have a lot of club head speed. If I was to let go of this club, it would just shoot straight down into the ground. All that momentum is heading down toward the turf. Then, at the last second, or as I clear my body more, my hands are gonna work back up and in. So as my left hip, my left shoulder rotate open, watch my left hand, it pulls back up and in. And that changes that momentum to where now it whips through there. So again, I have to get that downward momentum. I have to feel like I'm gonna hit down into the ground. I'm not worried about taking a divot too big with a 3-wood. It rarely ever happens. The second piece of that is once I get that momentum, I get the intention of hitting down, then I clear the body out of the way. I want to get my left side of my body just to turn through as much as I can, and that's how you get good contact and those really, really high club head speeds. So if I want to kick it up a notch, maybe I want to really hit one far with this 3-wood, I'm going to make sure that I clear even harder with the left side of my body, and then I make sure that I hit down. I have the intention of throwing the club down even harder. So let's go ahead and try this one. I'm gonna get a little faster club head speed, and I'm gonna see if I can just get one almost 300 yards with this 3-wood. Let's give it a whirl. All right, Q. Wanted to get a little bit more divot on that one, to be honest, but it was still pretty solid. Probably not gonna be the 300 that I wanted. What were the numbers on that one?
Pretty close. You got up to 298 total distance and 113 on the club head speed.
Yeah, so the club head speed was a lot faster. And again, all I felt like I did there is made sure that I had the intention of swinging down and clearing the left side of the body. That gets that whip that you're seeing on through there. Now, one last thing that's gonna also help with this, I have to make sure that I load up in the backswing. So many times when I see a player trying to get more club head speed, hit this good 3-wood, they're having this short swing, making it really compact to try to guide the ball. They're trying to place the ball on the club. If I'm gonna hit one really hard, I'm gonna really wind up. I wanna feel like my back turns to the target and then I really rotate all the way on through. So let's go ahead and try one more here where I really load up. Here, I'm gonna feel like my left shoulder gets completely behind the golf ball. That loads up my chest and allows me to get what I call a power turn. Let's go ahead and do another one here and see how this one goes when I focus on my backswing turn. There we go, killed that one. So that was a really nice solid hit. Again, had a little bit of a divot in front. What was the distance on that one, Q?
So distance was 307 yards and club head speed was 112 miles per hour.
All right, so probably not gonna do much better than that. I can't guarantee that you're gonna hit a 300-yard 3-wood. What I can guarantee is that if you follow these principles, you're gonna be able to add 20, maybe even 30 yards to what you're currently hitting your 3-wood right now. The big piece of this is from the left shoulder turn and really loading up. If I don't load up, none of the other stuff is gonna work. I'm not gonna have the power when I clear out of the way. Now, if you're struggling hitting 3-wood off the tee, I'm gonna make it really easy for you. If you know a couple basic things, then you're gonna hit your 3-wood. It's gonna be your favorite club. Definitely the easiest club to hit off the tee, in my opinion, is the 3-wood. Now, there's one thing that almost every single player does dead wrong when they're hitting the 3-wood off the tee. They tee it up way too high. So I see a lot of times players will have this ball teed up where it's above the crown of the driver like that, almost like the club, almost like you would a driver. And on a driver, you hit up on it a little bit. Now with the 3-wood, part of the consistency is coming from hitting down on it. I can be a little bit more consistent if I hit down. So I'm gonna tee it up pretty low, and I like to take even just a hair of a divot, or at least just brush the grass, even when I'm hitting it off the tee like this. So I've got it teed up pretty low here. One thing that helps with is when I'm making contact on the face, I want the contact to be higher on the face to get that ball to launch high with low spin so it goes a long way. If I hit it a little thin, 3-wood really just doesn't go very far. So if you want it to be consistent with your 3-wood and you want it to get pretty good distance, nobody wants to give up 60, 70 yards off the tee by hitting a 3-wood. You want it to go pretty far, you've got to hit it on the top half of the face. So tee it fairly low. I'm gonna hit down on it, take a very, very slight divot or at least brush the ground. So I'm gonna have it a little farther back in my stance than I would with a driver. And I'm gonna try to hit it on the top half of the face. That way I get this high knuckler of a 3-wood shot. There we go, really nice. I hit that high on the face. I just brushed the turf there. I don't mind even taking a little bit more than that and actually taking a slight divot when I'm hitting this shot. But that one went a long way there. I hit that one about as good as I can hit a golf ball. Now, the second part of this, and a lot of times what I see people do when they hit anything off the tee, is they get way too level. They start to stand up out of it. They throw their arms at the ball. It's a real pain in the butt. Now, there's a great way of thinking about this. You imagine my shoulders are at an angle here. Now, you may have never realized this before, but any throwing action, when you release, your arm is an extension, roughly an extension of your shoulders. And I've actually studied in high speed a lot of baseball pitchers. I've done a lot of tennis work, and it's the same for every single throwing action. Golf is a throwing action. I'm throwing this golf club at the golf ball, but my hand, my arm, is an extension of my shoulders whenever I'm throwing, whenever I release it. Could be here, could be there, but it's pretty much in a straight line. So when you're throwing a baseball, you say, well, Clay, that's a sidearm pitch. What about people who are throwing overhead? Well, an overhead baseball pitch is just this. When they release it, their shoulders are tilted. Their arm is above their head, but it's because their shoulders are tilted. If you leveled out the shoulders, it would be here. Tennis is the same way. You do your tennis serve, the shoulders get tilted down, you throw the racket up toward the tennis ball like this. Golf is the exact same thing, except for instead of throwing up, you're throwing down. So you imagine in the golf swing, I'm gonna take my right arm, I'm gonna tilt my shoulders, and I'm feeling like I'm throwing this golf club at the golf ball. So at the point of release, which would actually be a little past the golf ball, about 45 degrees in front, at the point of release, I'd wanna see it like this. I'd wanna see my shoulders and my right arm be releasing at that point out in front, just like that. This golf ball is just getting in the way. So if you feel like you stand up and throw, now all of a sudden my arms are doing something totally different than my shoulders. I'm not at the same angle, so I'm losing tons of speed. And then also I release it too early. Well, if I think of that release point out there and I tilt my shoulders, now all of a sudden that's that great position you see, that right arm still slightly bent at contact. Really good slight shaft lean, hitting down in this golf ball, and then everything releases there. That's my throw with the golf swing. So whether you're playing baseball, you're doing tennis, you're doing golf, it doesn't make any difference. It's all the same thing. I just have to throw to release that out in front. So with that visual, let's go ahead and hit another one. Ball a little back, not afraid to hit a divot here at all, and I'm gonna throw this club out in front. There we go, that one was absolutely smoked there. That was a really good tee shot for a 3-wood because that took off fairly low. Again, I smacked up some turf. I took a divot here. You can see my divot started right there at the beginning where that tee's at, and I took a nice little chunk out of the ground, and that allowed it to hit high on the face, and that thing, again, went an absolute mile. That was a long tee shot there. That's something me and Q have seen all the time, is players topping their 3-woods and hitting their shots thin off the ground. And what happens is a lot of times we think, you know, this 3-wood needs to be in the front of our stance. So we set up to where it would be similar or more toward what a driver would be. And what happens is your club naturally wants to ground out behind this, more toward the middle of your stance where you would make contact with an iron. And the club starts coming back up as you're hitting this golf ball. So if I have my ball position too far forward, it's going to be really easy to top the ball. So Q, let me hit a couple here. Yeah. And I want you to read the angle of attack on my flight scope, and also we'll also see the shot. Hopefully I don't top one in the water, but I probably will if I play it up in my stance here. So I'm going to play this ball up in my stance like you've probably heard to do before with a wood. You know, I feel like I'm going to lift it up in the air. A lot of times I'm barely going to miss the ground, and I'm going to kind of thin it if I do this. Let's try it out. That was a pretty good top there. So what I felt like, that was pretty awesome. I felt like as I'm making my normal swing that I would with a 3-wood, I naturally want to ground out back here, but my club is now working back up because it's too far up in my ball position. So I don't know if the flight scope's going to read it. Did it read angle of attack?
Yeah, I didn't even pick it up. It was so bad.
Didn't pick up anything. So let's try one more and I'll do the same thing. Probably not as exaggerated here. But again, anytime I get this ball too far forward in my stance, the club wants to work up. What a lot of people don't realize is that the club hits down, even with a wood. A pitching wedge hits down on the golf ball, PGA Tour average, hits down about 5 degrees down into the ground. So this club head, if it's a pitching wedge, is moving down into the ball at a -5 degree angle, like this. A 3-wood is moving down around -2 or 3 degrees. So it's still hitting down. The best players in the world are hitting down into the ball when they're hitting a 3-wood. And that's not very much of a difference. If you think of 1 minute on a clock, that's 6 degrees difference between 1 minute on a clock face. This is half of that. This is half a degree difference between a pitching wedge and a 3-wood. So when I put this ball way up in my stance, it's counterintuitive for what I'm actually wanting to do. I should be swinging the same with a pitching wedge and a 3-wood, where this has me swinging different, where I'm actually trying to lift the ball up in the air. Let's try one more time here and see if I can get a little more solid strike. Yeah, so there, even though I kind of hit it a little bit left, it wasn't the best shot. It was fairly clean, but it was on the bottom of the face. I was a hair from completely topping it again like I did that last one. Read any numbers on there?
Yeah, you actually managed it up on that one a little bit, 0.8
Okay.
degrees.
So my club is barely missing the ground back here, and then I'm hitting up on the ball, and that's why it felt so thin, because my club is moving up into this golf ball, and the bottom of my club is hitting the equator of the ball. It still ended up to be okay, but definitely not the margin for error that you want to have. So the number one thing here, we want to make sure that we're playing all of our clubs from a pitching wedge to a 3-wood, very similar ball position. So let me just grab a wedge here. I would normally play most of my wedges right around the center of my stance. So here's a sand wedge or gap wedge. I'm going to play it pretty much in the center of my stance if I'm playing a normal shot. If I want to knock it down or do something different, I may move it a little bit, but not very much. When I play my 3-wood, all I'm going to do is have that marginally, very marginally farther forward if I want to get a little bit more height on it. I could even play a 3-wood from the middle of the stance. That would ensure that I hit down on it just like I am my pitching wedge. But I like to play what feels comfortable to me is about like this, right? I don't want that way up here by my front foot. That should be, if the camera's lined up correctly, right about the middle of my stance, or maybe one ball toward the front. And again, the reason for that is I want to be able to take the same swing with my pitching wedge all the way to my 3-wood, hit down on all those shots, and that way I make sure I make ball first contact, it's nice and solid, I don't thin it, and I don't chunk it. Now, you're probably asking about the driver. That is a little bit different. I do want to hit up on the driver. So I'm going to play that driver more toward my front foot so I can be hitting a positive angle of attack, just like we saw on that 3-wood that I miss-hit. The reason it's good with a driver, the ball's up in the air. I don't have to worry about thinning the ball because there's no ground in the way. I can tee the ball up, swing up on it, hit it just as good in the center of the face. Now, one of the other problems with this is, what if I'm not very consistent? So now I got my good ball position, I'm making my swing, but one time I chunk one and the next time I thin one, I just can't hit the same spot every time. You know, we've talked about this, Q. What's the number one thing you see if somebody's struggling with that? What would you recommend?
One thing that I often see is that when you put that ball further up in your stance, it can kind of compound another issue, which is when we see that ball up in our stance, what we want to do is we want to kind of lean toward the target as we go up to the top. So that's, you see here, that's what Clay's doing. As he went up to the top here, he kind of get his spine angle leaning toward the target a little bit. And when you do that, what you're going to tend to want to do is you're going to tend to want to fall away in the downswing. So you see as he goes down, he falls away. And look where that club bottoms out at. Bottoms out behind the golf ball, and that's going to compound the issues of hitting behind the golf ball. So what we want to do is get that ball nice in a good place like Clay talked about, and then also make sure that we're getting to our lead, or our trail side, excuse me, in the backswing, get nice and loaded up, and then in the downswing, that's when we get our good weight shift and get to our lead side so we can get that ball first contact. So you want to try and hit one and where we get that good ball placement, and then also get nice and loaded up and get to our lead side.
Yeah, absolutely. And like he's talking about there, you know, when that ball's way up, you know, I think I want to get to my left side, so I'm just compensating by starting left in the backswing, and then you have to fall back. Because if you got left and you stayed left, you'd be swinging away, you'd just be chopping down and it wouldn't be any good. So your body knows that's not going to work. So let's go ahead and do it the right way here now. I'm going to go ahead and play it toward the middle of my stance, maybe just one ball up would be completely fine. And then from there, I'm gonna feel like I get a little tilt behind it, like we talk about all the time in the Top Speed Golf system. And then I can load up on my right side and shift to the left, swing down and through and be nice and powerful. Just like you're throwing a baseball, just like you're throwing a football, just like you're hitting about anything you do that's athletic. You load on the right side first and then you swing through to the left side. So good ball position. I'm gonna try to hit down. I should have a little tiny bit of a divot if I do this correctly. Let's go ahead and give it a whirl. There we go, much better. Right down the middle of the fairway, higher on the face. You'll see there's a little tiny divot here. That's what you should have if you're hitting a 3-wood. Most people think you shouldn't have any divot when you hit 3-wood. Watch the best players in the world. Every single time they hit this club, there's a little tiny divot. It makes it so much more consistent. So what were our numbers there on Flight Scope?
So hit the ball quite a bit further, went from 220 to 246.6. And then our angle of attack got a little bit down on the ball, got negative 3.6 down on the ball, and that's going to allow you to get that good ball first contact.
It's almost perfect, just like we were talking about before. -2, -3 is perfect for a 3-wood, and it's almost exactly the same as a wedge. The only difference between the 3-wood and the wedge is sharper. That sharp leading edge cuts more of a divot. But this, if I was swinging a wedge and had that exact same swing, it would have a little bit more of a divot because that leading edge, but it feels the same. Whether I'm hitting any club in the bag, I just swing and it's going to happen almost exactly the same when you're hitting off the ground. So here's the deal. Why don't we make it easy? Set up in the right position to make this happen. We've already talked about the ball position. Now get your spine position to where you can get that weight on your right side. You can have that good weight shift. What I want you to do is get a little bit of tilt in what I call the stable fluid spine. I'm gonna play one of my best videos for the stable fluid spine here in a second. Just click the card that pops up on your screen. If you don't see that, go ahead and click the link in the description. You'll get instant access to that video. I can't wait to share this with you and make it a whole lot easier to play consistent golf. What is it that allows us to have consistency in the golf swing? And what is it that allows that consistency to fall apart and create some bad rounds? That's what we're going to talk about in this video today. Let's go ahead and get started. Everything that happens in the golf swing is initially dictated by what happens with the spine. So if we're looking at a skeleton, you know, my spine's in the center of my body and everything else in my body is attached to my spine. So my shoulders are attached to my spine, my arms attached to my shoulders, and then my arms are going to be actually swinging the club. Now when I see players that are really struggling, those guys that are hitting it out in the woods right, they're hitting in the left, then they have a few good holes, what's happening is their spine angle is changing. As they go to the top of the swing, maybe they have a reverse pivot, spine's angled back, falling back to the right, but there's a lot of inconsistency in that. And what happens is, as good athletes as we all are, the #1 fundamental in golf, correct, keep it nice and stable, but fluid, we're gonna be able to hit those good clean shots time and time again. And that's what I'm gonna show you in this series of videos.
Henrik Stenson, top 5 in both driving distance and accuracy. Rory McIlroy here, playing some of the best golf that anybody's ever played, and you can see just how stable.